Right, good morning, my name's Matt, and welcome aboard. Let's go and change the screen across and get to the right camera setting. There we go. Right, very good morning. My name's Matt, welcome aboard. Those of you which is your first time here, this is a live build session which each week, every Saturday morning here UK time, is that we sit down and we build or we repair a model here at the workbench. Now it's telling me that we are live. I'm just going to make sure that we are on the right setting. It should be. It's just lagging behind quite heavily there on YouTube. So sound is good, Phil. I always appreciate that. Thank you very much. So today's topic is very simple. We are going to be looking at the EagleTree Vector. Now, those of you which don't know what the EagleTree Vector is, in short, it's an all-in-one solution for being a flight controller, on-screen display, return to home, stabilization, everything which you would pretty much want in a flight controller system, if that makes sense. So the reason behind this video is because Andy Bolton, which many of you will know from the Funny Farm, is a chap which I fly with every other weekend, has finally been and bought a pair of EagleTree Vectors to go into his Mini Talon. The bit which really annoyed him was that with his current system is that it won't return to home if he's less than 100 meters high. And sometimes I can tell you, we might need that. And of course, there's been me for the last 2 years, relentlessly throwing the Mini Talon every single morning, and then never having a single issue at all. So that is the reason for this video. So this video is actually dedicated to Andy. So Andy, this video is for you. However, everybody else who's watching this is going to be a fantastic insight into the EagleTree Vector because they're not cheap, and we will be discussing cost versus time versus reliability as part of this live episode. Now, just to make the point here, this is being recorded live, so all screw-ups we leave in here, and on the right-hand side of your screen, you'll notice that there's a live chat going on. So if you are on the live version and you're not seeing the live chat, either press the live chat button underneath this video, or if you're on an iPad or phone, is that it's hiding down there in the bottom right-hand corner, and you'll be able to see the chat pop up. Now, if you have any questions or comments as we go along, feel free to join in with the live chat. I will be going back to your chat as we go along in this episode. So with that, and no further ado, let's jump across to the desktop and we will take a closer look at the EagleTree Vector. So you'll notice I've got two cameras set up. I may pause to come over and have a quick chat to you, but we've got the overhead camera. Now, let's take a quick look at this because it really is... you get a box with a load of collection parts in it, and this is what it kind of boils down to. You have your main flight controller here, and I'll just put my hand, well, I'll give you some rough dimensions. It's about 7 centimeters by 3 centimeters by about 15 mil deep. In short, you have your main flight controller, which is here. This is what everything plugs into. And you also have your GPS unit as well. That's how the model knows which ways to turn to come back to you. And you also have, probably not as janky looking as that. The reason why mine doesn't look that great is because I bought this one with the Dean's connectors on it because it was cheaper. And I've then made my own little connectors up so that I can use the XT60s with it. And this is the current sensor and power supply for your flight controller, GPS unit, and any peripheral accessories as well. So yeah, yours would not look as janky as that. That's Matt soldering up, but saying that, that has done hundreds of miles in the sky and never let me down. So anyway, let me get back to the point. You have a power supply and current sensor, you plug your battery in here, and then you plug your ESC in here, so the system then knows how much current you're pulling. Also, it provides stabilized power, not only for the unit itself and the GPS unit and any accessories, which we'll look at in a moment, but it also supplies the power supply. And this is one of the things I really like about the Vector. It also provides the power for your video transmitter and your FPV camera as well, something which I genuinely really do like. I've personally powered up to 3 FPV cameras into part of one install with the Vector off the power supply and never had an issue. There's also 2 options here. It gives you the different power supplies. So normally you just use 12 volts for your camera and your VTX. However, there is a 5-volt option should you have one of those rare or maybe older FPV cameras which only takes 5 volts. You do have one extra 5-volt option there as well. And then let me just pop this down on the desk. It is, in the scheme of things, it only weighs a couple of grams. It is very, very simple to install. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to pause for a moment, A, to have a sip of coffee, and B, just to pause for a moment and look at your chat. So good morning, who everybody is on here live. Looks like, oh, someone's managed to get themselves man flu. Andy, I've just seen that in the chat. Lawrence says your workshop has changed. Yes, quite a different change going on here at the moment. Still not finished, definitely a work in progress. There was a video a short while ago called Matt's RC Workbench Part 1. And I think we're still at Part 1 at the moment. Because it just works. Paddy says, is the EagleTree Vector £175? Yes, it is. And I think, Paddy, thank you for bringing that up, because I do feel it would be a really, really good point for us to pause for a moment and get to the 2 things which are the elephants in the room. The first one is price, and the second one is here on my phone. I did make some notes here this morning. So the 2 negatives, and I want to get these out of the way very, very quickly, is the 2 negatives, and we are going to have some fun in a minute setting this one up, because I've got to unplug my microphone, because the EagleTree Vector, I'll show you up on the top camera, uses the older USB connector. Can you see that fat one you got in there just on the top? Yeah, I cannot find my other lead, so I'm going to have to unplug my microphone at the moment, because it's the only lead which I know I've got out here. Which is the right size for it, and you don't get one in the box. So that's actually my biggest bugbear. It's not price, it's the fact that I need a USB-A connector. It's the odd one, which nobody ever uses anymore, and you don't get one in the box. And that's actually my biggest gripe about the EagleTree Vector. I paid 175 quid for it. You could have included a USB lead. That's my biggest, not price. It is an annoyance, the price, but not having a USB lead, and I've only got one here, it's plugged into the microphone. So we'll do a bit of microphone hackery in a moment. So very good point, Paddy. So just looking at my notes on here is that the first thing I need to make the point of is that this video is not sponsored by EagleTree Systems at all. That's the people who make the EagleTree Vector. I own 4 of them. I think they're really good. Andy going on and getting a couple, I think that probably kind of sums it up for you. The biggest thing for you to know is that it is an all-in-one system. So it does include the current sensor, includes the flight controller, which has all the things which you would expect. So just free movement, so no stabilizer, you can do what you like. Those of you who saw the Ranger 1600 maiden a short while ago, I'm sure you remember me trying to do rolls in stabilize mode, going, it really doesn't like this. Somebody had it in stabilize mode. The second we had it out of stabilized, it rolled like a drill. Anyway, they're very axial rolls on the Ranger 1600 after you take stabilize mode off it. It has other modes as well. There's stabilize, which is what you would expect. You have loiter, you have waypoints built natively into the Vector, which I can point blank tell you work really well. There are a few limitations to that, but actually speaking, they're not. It's to do with distance, which, should you be going at its distance, is somewhat arguable. It has an loiter mode, so maybe you find something of interest, or you spilt a cup of coffee in your lap, which has been known to happen here before. Loiter mode, click on a switch, and the model will just loiter, which is absolutely fantastic. It allows you either to compose yourself, aka dry yourself, or just to chill out for a moment while you're doing something else, okay, or to take stock of what's going on underneath you. And of course, the return to home as well, which has every single time worked bar once, And that's because Matty landed it in a tree. And that's a video episode which is coming out this week. Look out for that very literally in the next couple of days. Already been edited, already uploaded on YouTube. And yes, I managed to land in the very, very top of a tree. And of course, return to home wouldn't work if you're perched at the top of a 40-foot tree. So yeah, that's the only instance I've had of the Vector not coming home. It also has, and this is for me the killer feature, it has a fully configurable on-screen display, and it's not just white text, it's also color-coded as well. In fact, in a minute we'll be over here on the desktop and we'll be setting up the OSD how I personally like it, and we'll also be looking at one or two other features as well, and you'll kind of get the idea very quickly why I really like the EagleTree Vector, and also why I own 4 of them and don't ever complain about the price of them because of the overall package which you get as an RC pilot. And what's the other? Oh, the last one, last but one, proven to work. I cannot stress that enough. In fact, those of you which own an EagleTree Vector, can you do me a favour? In the live chat on the right hand side of the screen, can you please share your opinions, whether they're good or bad, what your experience has been with the EagleTree Vector, because there's me being an avid fan, but let's give this a rounded approach because I fully do appreciate some of you might have had negative experiences with this flight controller system. So please share. And I genuinely mean that, bad and also good. Okay, try and be fair with that. How was your setup experience? How did you find the software? What on earth did you think of that extremely well written manual? And so on and so forth. Please do share your experiences with that so that you can help other pilots which are reading the chat which is going along here live. And the last one for me is actually a combination of things, is because it's fast to install, it's fast to configure. Literally, when you get to the flight line, you throw your model in the sky, and those of you who saw the Ranger 1600 maiden video, this will be kind of like ringing bells with you now, is that you get the model up into the sky, you trim it in line of sight, and then, that's what I do by the way, you could have just go straight into FPV, but get the model up into the sky, get it trimmed in as best you can, stick the goggles down, get it properly trimmed in, okay, land the model, and then incorporate those trims. Job's a good one. That's it. That is the basic setup of the EagleTree Vector. After that, it just works. Return to home always comes home. Okay, it just works, and that's for me the biggest thing about the EagleTree Vector is the time which it takes me to go from the workbench to the flight line. Is, yes, in theory, what we'll say 60 quid for an INAV setup. So that will be the F722 Maytech flight controller with the PDB on the bottom, and then a GPS unit. That's UK prices. I literally looked it up yesterday. That's 40 quid for the board, 20 quid for the GPS. So we'll see 60 quid. So the iNav or Ardu plane, as the case may be, is 3 times less expensive. However, it's 3 times more time intensive to get ourselves to the flight line. I think that's the biggest thing for me personally, is that I can go from a model on the desktop, and by the way, I've got the Bixler over here. We'll be setting that one up in a moment. And it's the time which it takes from the desk to the flight line and then forever after. You've got to remember that. That on-screen display, which has got is not a hidden menu, so you just double-click your mode button twice, and that's it. You can change pretty much every single system setting on the flight line. No computer, no USB lead, all done off your transmitter. Very, very simple. That for me is worth its weight in gold. And I'm going to shut up now. I'm going to get back to that desktop. So let's go and move that over there and move back to your chat as well. Let's have a quick look. Yes, that is UK pounds. It's about 175 quid. Say what I'll say, about $200. Costs more than... Right, so Stifler's made a point on there. My twin dream costs more than £1,000, and I want to be sure that it comes back from a long-range trip. That is exactly the reason why we use a Vector. It always comes home. Remember that scene from like the original Fast and Furious fit, and you've got the chap, and he's gone off, and he's got the bloke back to the party which is going afterwards, and the buster got me home. That is the EagleTree Vector. It gets you home. For me, unless there's a tree in the way, which was my own fault. You'll find out about that in a later episode. You're going to be absolutely fine. Also, I want to make this point there, is the Vector does also have some advanced mode allowed to mountain mode. So maybe you've gone up a mountain, is that you can set, there's an advanced setting in the Vector which tells it that it needs to go higher than the mountain. So maybe you've gone up the mountain and gone off, is that you can then tell the Vector to go back to the highest point, and then that's the height which it comes back to, so you don't go smack into the mountain. Also, there's an advanced setting which me and Andy will have a chat offline, we're on the flight line, because sometimes, well, all right, the majority of the time, we fly below 20 meters from the height which we took off, and as such, return to home won't work in those scenarios unless you enable very special setting in the Vector to allow return to home to happen in those instances, because in theory that you should always be above the height 20 meters higher than what you took off from. But however, where we fly in a valley, and of course we end up at minus 13, 17, 18 meters from the level which we took off. So in theory, we should set that setting so we can do a return to home there. We can easily go and fetch the model if we make a mistake. However, for return to home to happen in those instances, we need to change a setting to do that. There is a negative to that, which you could spin up your prop on your desk. So that's why me and Andy will have a chat with that offline. So, sorry, I've gone off on a bit of tangent, but I think Stifler hit the nail on the head. Your model comes home with a Vector. That has been my personal experience. When I've needed it, it's always come home. Even from the very beginning, when I needed it, it came home. So you may think $175 or 175 quid. Think about the XUAV Clouds, for example. Or no, let's just do a Mini Talon. The Mini Talon, 50 quid. Then you've got all the time to laminate it, the servos, your FPV camera, your HD camera in there, your motor, your ESC, all the parts which make up a model soon quickly add up in cost. And then that's where the flight controller kicks in and really makes really good value for money. So yes, on one hand, it's expensive, and I can complain about a USB lead not being included on that. But on the other hand, in the scheme of things, actually quite good value for money if you know that it's going to bring you home. So I've gone off on a bit of a tangent. Let's have a quick look. Right, it is time for me to get to this desktop. So, let's take the hat off. Let's have a closer look at this. So, in short, it's very, very simple. And before we get into the other parts, as mentioned, we have our flight controller. We plug in our things on the back. We'll have a look at the desktop software in just a moment. We've got the current sensor, which we mentioned. We've got the GPS unit, and you've got you normally get a longer lead than that. That's just a short one, which I've got in there. You've got two also connected in. This is one really nice thing I like about the Vector, is because they've labelled everything. Can you see on there? They've labelled it vid, TX, and camera. So there's no you can't really screw it up. I genuinely mean that. Oh, one other little piece which I know Bonafide Pirate likes a lot is that you can also get audio feedback. So those of you which are using the earphone in, say, your Fat Sharks, is that you can also get audible alerts. You can also hear your model if you've been fitted a microphone as well. Something which I've never personally used, but that is an option. I know the pilots which do use it do like it a lot. Anyway, getting back to the topic. So in short, we need to be able to fit this into our model, and we'll go through the steps in a moment. But what I want to do is just put those to one side. I want to point out a couple of optional extras which you can get. You can get an info display panel. This is great. Well, I always thought it was great to begin with because you can then go on and see the status of the model without having to look at your camera. But as I found out, you find out everything on your camera. So that's a bit of a... That would only be used if you weren't using this with FPV to do something random. So anyway, I bought one of those ages ago. There's also extra wiring looms which you can purchase. So that's a spare one, put that one out of the way. There's also a non-standard one which also works. So remember the Immersion RC 600 milliwatt VTXs? That's been set up for that video transmitter specifically, and you can buy those as an option. You can also have a pitot tube, so an airspeed sensor. So I'm going to move that out. So you basically mount that somewhere in your model, obviously in clear air. I've got that on my Mini Talon, and you put 2 tubes round, and there's the little unit there, and it all runs on this simple bus mechanism, which is just connecting wires up. You really can't go wrong with the wiring of a Vector, because the plugs only go in one way round. I can't stress how easy that makes things. And there was one other module which you can have, and this one, there's a special note on this, which is this is the alerter module. So if you to lose your model, is that one there? I've never actually used it. If you do use it, it's supposed to be on the end of the bus chain. So the idea is that you can string, if I put that like that, so you put your GPS first, then you'd put your airspeed sensor, and then you'd put the alerter at the end. Okay, so it's just a simple bus system, and the wires, every unit has 2 plugs in it, so you can plug it in, and then you can daisy chain on items together. So there's some additional items which, again, some of them I've used. I do use the airspeed sensor. The airspeed sensor is really quite nice because not only can you see your GPS ground speed, but you can also see the airspeed which the model's going at. So maybe you've got an airspeed of 54 miles an hour, all kilometers, you can change the setting for that. So say 54 miles an hour, but your ground speed is only 28. Well, that kind of tells you you've got one heck of a headwind, and you really need to be on the ball to know that you're going to be able to get back home again. Similar to that, maybe you've got a ground speed of 54 miles an hour, but your airspeed is only 28. Well, that's one wicked tailwind, and you're going to be home, hopefully, because you always fly end to wind, of course. You then know that you're going to be home in literally next to no time. So, yeah, there are some really big benefits to using an airspeed sensor. I've only got 2, and one of them I've just not put together. It's only really the Mini Talon which I've been using it for. Right, as I said, let's progress. Gone off into a bit of tangent. We looked at some accessories. Next thing which we want to do is we're going to walk through the process of actually setting this up. And what I've got is that I've got my transmitter here. We'll be setting this one up, and I have, now I was going to do this with a Mini Talon, but when I went into the cellar to find the Mini Talons, I got 3 hiding down there, is that none of them were set up properly. So seeing that we've had a minor incident with the Bixler 2, it kind of looked good enough for us to use that as a reference to set this up. So you can literally see what's going on, all right? And that's what we're going to be using to set up here this morning. Right, the setup process for the Vector, in fact, let me just whip back to the main screen. Yeah, the setup process for the Vector is literally 4 steps. So let me just get this right. The first thing which you want to do on receiving your Vector is A, update the firmware, and B, factory reset it. Especially if you've been and bought a second-hand one, you don't want any settings hanging over from before. And also, crucial point, when you do upgrade your or factory reset your system, remember you do need your GPS module also attached at the same time. Then then you do your basic configuration in the software, which we will look at in just a moment. Then we install it into the model. We will do that in a moment. It's really map proof. You just jam the things in the right places. It's not very hard at all. Genuinely not hard at all. Then you configure your transmitter. And that's not only, we'll look at the Tyrannus and the settings which you need in there, but also you need to configure it to the model, and then we'll go for the crucial step, which is making sure that the model's doing what it should be doing, and we match the transmitter to the model, not the other way around. That'll make a little bit of sense later. And then the test flight. Now we can't do a test flight here, unfortunately, but like I said, you literally just make sure the surfaces are moving the right way, not only when stabilization is off, but also when stabilizer is enabled. You throw it in the sky, fly it around, get the model trimmed in, land it on the flight line, and then we incorporate the trims into the system. Okay, so 4-step process. Let's get into the first one, which is that we need to factory reset this one. And again, I also know there's an update for this. Now, before we go any further, I need to swap the microphone over on here, because like I said, my only gripe with the Vector is that they don't include the USB lead in the box. Now, I've only got one plug here, which has got the right connector on it, and I'm going to swap the audio across to the laptop. That means that I can now unplug that one, and all I'm going to do is that once I found what I did with the Vector, there we go, just going to plug it in on the side, and then I'm going to swap the audio across to the laptop. That means that I can now unplug that one, and all I'm going to do is that once I found what I did with the Vector, there we go, just going to plug it in on the side, and then I'm going to Don't know if you just heard that. It's just been recognised it's been plugged in. And let me flip across to the desktop. So desktop. Brilliant. There we go. Right. Let's move that out of the way. Now, the software, those of you which would like to play with the EagleTree software, is that you can download it off their website for free. And you don't need a vector to do it. This is one of the nice things about it, is that you just press it when you get once you've installed it, you get this pop-up window saying connect your vector. Just press the escape key, and then you can go and play with their software. So give me a moment. Do I have it already running? Probably not. Vector. There we go. Right, this is really cool. Now, let me just make sure this is coming out correctly on the screen. Yes, it is. There we go. Oh, let me move that away. Right, the firmware, blah, 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 blah. Click OK. Click to upgrade Vector 2.79. Right, this is the upgrade process. There is no pressing buttons, no faffing with the stuff. All you need to do is plug it in. It's flashing a little green light at me down there. And I really do hope that audio is working, because it kind of looked like it was working. And that's it. It will update itself, and it'll be on the latest one. We'll also go and factory reset that as well while we're at it. There we go. I think it's just been finished. There we go. Firmware successfully updated. And it's loading. Right, there's the desktop software. I'm just going to move back to the live chat as well. Paddy says, so would it be worth buying an EagleTree Vector for a Talon? I run an EagleTree Vector in my Mini Talon. It works really, really well. Genuinely works really well. I wouldn't consider running a different flight controller, to be brutally honest, on there. Also, just pausing for a moment on there. Any bad points? Yeah, that's fair enough. Right, let's get back to the software. So this is their desktop software. Let me move some of these bits out of the way. Right, there we go. We'll take a quick look around the software. So in short, we have a collection of options on the left-hand side, and those match these tabs along the top. Now, the first thing which we need to do is choose the airframe. And you will notice that the Vector supports not only traditional fixed wing, okay, but also flying wings as well, VTOLs, aka the Mini Talon, and also a plethora of quads as well, which I've never used a Vector in a quad. I assume it works. So we are, in this instance, we're going to go for traditional fixed wing, because that's what we got there. We got most of the Bixler over there on the workbench. So Andy, when you're setting yours up, you would go for a VTOL fixed wing. So we're going to, oh, actually, I didn't press the, what I'm going to do is click there and quickly do factory reset. Wait for that to finish. Sorry, that was the thing which I should have done, which is press the factory reset button at the bottom. Just waiting for it to reload. Brilliant. Now we're going to choose traditional fixed wing. Then we're going to click apply. Right, blah, 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 blah. Basically, you need to click OK. After changing the airframe type, confirm the newly selected one. So we need to unplug it and plug it back in again. Right. So we are now going to plug it back in again. Ace. Right, now we are going to move into what would I normally do here? This is where I would go on and I would probably add the Vector outside of the model like we've got here. Then I would now go on and install it into the model. And you may be wondering, like, well, Matt, what do I plug in where? And that's the thing, right? It's dead straightforward. If you look down here on here, so there we go, traditional fixed wing airframe type. So maybe you'll do it like using the VTOL. It will tell you where you need to plug the stuff. So we need the rudder servo in M1, in rudder M1. So we look on top of the unit itself. Now this is going to be all a bit blooming awkward because I don't have enough space there to do this and get that in there. So that's going to be fun. So I don't even know which one's the rudder one. So yeah, that's the end of it. Right, that's the rudder. So we need the rudder to go in one. I'll show you this on the camera in a moment. So we'll put rudder into one. It's even labelled on here as well. So we've got that in there. Then we need, what's the next one? We need the aileron, which is the other wire. And you'll see that what I'm doing, I'm just reading it off the bottom of the thing. Now, when it comes to the ailerons, you will need a Y lead splitter for it. Then we need the elevator, which is that one there. And then we need the throttle, which is M4. And it's literally written on the top of the unit. I'll show you that on the screen in a moment. There we go. That's the wires plugged in. That's how fast it is to set it up for the wiring. You just plug the stuff in and you're away. Really straightforward to do. So I've just followed those instructions. However, maybe you're using a VTEL, can you see on there? So it says VTEL servo 2 rudder. So you've got 2 servos in your VTEL, Andy, or whoever has got a Mini Talon. You've got 2 wires coming down, so you'll put one of them on M1. You've got your ailerons on M2, and then your other tail servo for the VTEL comes in, you put into M3, and then you've got your throttle servo for M4. Now, I'm going to pause here for a moment because some of you may be wondering already, Matt, what do I do about flaps? Now, here's the thing, you can configure flaps within the Vector. However, I've personally never done it, but what I have seen other people do, say for example Chris Click, is that he does the flaps outside of the Vector, so not as part of the Vector system, has it done separately through probably an S-Bus to PWM converter, and then just enables the flaps and then just lets the flight controller sort it out. Okay, so yeah, there is an option to set up flaps with part of the Vector, but genuinely speaking, from what I've seen other people do, is that they do it outside of the Vector and then just let the stabilizer deal with what's going on to stop it from stalling or dropping a wing and things like that. Let the stabilizer do what it needs to do. So anyway, there we go. We will get to RC configuration in just a moment. Oh, the one thing which I need to do is that I'm actually going to be using an L9R receiver here. However, the thing about the Vector is that you can either have individual RC outputs, if you're using some weird system, you can be using S-Bus, or you can use PPM. That basically covers every single RC receiver which is out there, in short. Because even if this one didn't have S-Bus out, is that you could connect up each individual pin out and plug it into there as if it was going off to the rudder, the ailerons, the elevator and things like that, and then put them straight into the Vector if you don't have S-Bus or you don't have PPM. That does mean that I personally use this with the TBS Crossfire kit, but it works with S-Bus, it works with Easy UHF. If it supports S-Bus and PPM, then it works with the Vector nicely. Worst case, you can connect up each wire and you get those in the box as well. Personally, I unpick all those other ones and then just run straight S-Bus in there. So I am going to connect that up to the S-Bus connector. If you're unsure on any of the pinouts for the model itself, don't panic. Their manual for the EagleTree Vector is absolutely brilliant, in short. In fact, the manual is something like 88 pages long, and actually you can skip about 40 of those pages because it's all multi-rotor related. So if you're setting this up for a fixed wing, then yeah, it's all just completely straightforward. So we'll get to the RC configuration in just a moment. What I am going to do is that, get this on to overview. Right. What I am going to quickly do, so Andy, this is you specifically, the way which I set mine up is that I set stabilized off position 1, 2D no hold. So I've got, I'll show you, transmitter. What I'm using on my transmitter is these 2 top switches, okay, on the Tyrannus. SE and SG, they're both 3-way switches. And the basic premise is that with those switches is that they're both pushed away from me. Now, if I'm in a panic situation and I need the model to come home, imagine that you want something to come towards you, don't you? So you wait, come here. If you're panicking, you need someone to come here, right? You do that. It's natural for you to do that. As such, return to home for me is both switches to come towards me. I need the model to come towards me, okay? That's my logic behind that because it makes sense in real life as well. So the top 2 switches, those using combination, model come home, come to me, okay? So that's how I set those switches up. So the one on the left is this first column. So you'll see stabilize off, full control, do what you want, Vector's just the onboard pilot which is holding on to its pants before it kisses its butt goodbye. 2D no hold. That is just straightforward stabilized mode. Okay, it's just going to hold itself in 2D space. Okay, what I also suggest is 2D plus sub mode there. And this is where we're getting into a bit of an issue because we need to set up our extra switches. So there should be another column in there. We'll get to that in a moment. There's one other piece which we are going to quickly look at is the on-screen OSD setup. And this is your on-screen display. And you can basically tick the things which you would like. One thing which I'll point out for you, Andy, specifically is that you'll want to tick pit up airspeed. So the airspeed on the left-hand side of the screen, that will be from the pit up tube, assuming you've got that installed. If you don't have it installed, it will just register 0 because it's not connected. So you have installed the pit up tube, the airspeed sensor, which we saw earlier. You'll want to include that on there. You can also include climb rate as well. And basically, you choose what you'd like, maybe flight time remaining. And then maybe you want to move that around. Maybe you don't want it there. Can you see you can just drag it around your screen like so? So you choose the option. So I personally like the GPS sensor in the bottom left-hand corner. We maybe put remaining up the top. What other options in here? So speeds. Now this is where I set mine up. I set my speeds in miles per hour. Sorry, I'm English and I have a bit of a weird setup. It kind of makes sense to me. I have distances in meters. And I have altitude in meters as well. So I understand miles per hour very well, but I understand distances and heights in meters. It's UK Pacific, and this is one of the nice things about the Vector, is that I can configure it to do that. And there we go. I'm going to go for, you can have different types of HUDs on there. The F16 is really confusing. You always want simple on there, and I'm not going to go off. I'll share with you later on why you should not do that. And that will do for now. We'll go and click on apply. Oh, where's the battery setting? Pack voltage, there's flight time, call sign. Let me just run down here. Oh, there we go. Maybe we're using a 5200 4S pack. There we go. And there we go. Tick that on there. And the system will then tell us how much of, I'll move that over there. So on the on-screen display is that generally what I've got is RSSI in the top left-hand corner with link quality. That's an advanced, I'm not going to cover it here. And then I like the GPSs and ground speed in the bottom left-hand corner. And then in the top right-hand corner, I'd like to see the current being drawn at the current time, the amount of milliamperes used as well. And there's an option which I'm not seeing on here at the moment. It should be seeing a battery option as well, which I can't see for the life of me. It's nothing quite like doing this stuff live, is there? So yeah, happy days. Right, that's the desktop software. There's waypoints on there. There's a collection of other stuff which is based in the software, but what we are going to be interested in now is doing the wizard. Now, we're going to be doing this at the desktop in the warm, okay? But one thing for you to keep on the back of your mind, you can also do this on the flight line using once it's pre-configured once before, so you've got a mode switch set up, is that you can redo this on the flight line using the on-screen display via FPV. Okay, so when you're on the ground, maybe you've got one of the surfaces set up incorrectly, you go back through, you reverse it in your transmitter, and then you can reset this up on the flight line. Very, very, very handy. So what I'm going to quickly do, I'm just going to jump back to your chat as we go on there. Sounds good. Sound is going iffy. Yeah, so I've had to swap microphones to do this. I do apologise if the sound is not great. I've only got, like I said, the only negative I can say about the EagleTree Vector is that I don't have a separate microphone. Sorry, a separate USB lead. I've only got one USB lead for that one. So, tell you what, no, we'll leave it at that as for now. Right. Got it plugged in on the desk. You'll notice that I have removed the propeller from the model. Let's go and plug it in. I'll need to turn my transmitter on as well.
Throttle warning, switch warning, stabilization off, horizon mode, engine off, high rates off.
Once she's finished, right, let's get that plugged in. And right, we'll have a look at the wiring in a moment. That's why it's not coming on, because I haven't plugged it in. Right, that's been connected. Right, what we are now going to do is go through the run RX, run the receiver analysis wizard. Wow, that text is tiny. The reason why the text is tiny is because their software is having an issue trying to cope with 4K screen resolution, which I've got on that laptop. So what we're going to do is go and click on next. I kind of remember these ones, so I want the fingers in English. I'm going to choose S-Bus and then click next. Choose a secondary, so I don't want any of those. I'm just going to click on next. So a quick choose a vector whether you're in failsafe. So I'm going to leave the failsafe as part of S-Bus. Okay, you could have it done to modal switches. I just choose S-Bus on mine. Right, now this is where we need to go through and we need to teach the vector our inputs from our transmitter. So let's assume, well, I've wired it up like we saw earlier, and I've got the receiver connected here as well on the side, and it's powered up with a battery, and remember I've taken the prop off.
Engines armed.
One massive tip is that if you're using a throttle safety switch on the back of your transmitter, remember to enable it. Otherwise, you go and check your model and return to home doesn't work because you actually went through the wizard with the throttle safety switch on, so it kind of didn't work. Done that before. Anyway, right, let's go and do next. Right, so we need to move. Right, there we go. Right, we need to move the mode switch to a new thing. So I've been a setup, and the thing for you to set up, we'll have a look at the transmitter settings in a moment. But right now, I've got the mode switch top left. There we go. Click next. Brilliant. It's found that on channel 5. Now it says move the throttle switch all the way up, which I've just been and done. Next, move the throttle switch all the way down. Next. That's channel 1. Now, a big point here is that you don't do any mixing in your transmitter at all. Okay, and by the way, those of you which have just been and joined us, we are looking at the EagleTree Vector, and I'm using the microphone on the laptop for a couple of minutes while we're doing this, and I do apologise if the audio quality is a bit crap. Okay, so anyway, moving on. Next is that we want to move the aileron stick all the way to the left. There we go. We click next. We pull the elevator all the way. We click next. We move the rudder all the way to the left. Sub-mode switch, so that's the switch in the top right-hand corner.
Return to launch.
Keep that in the back of your mind. Next. One thing which I have set up on mine is that I've got a gain knob on mine. I'm going to turn that round. There we go. It's just found that on channel 9. I don't have flaps. It will complain about that. That's fine. We'll click next. Right. Now each channel is the number and the moderator. Right. Right, this is where you now need to turn your transmitter off. Now, this is where, ideally where you've been to set the failsafe on your model. So what I'm going to quickly do is, set the failsafe on your receiver. So what I've been to set with my transmitter right now is that both these top two switches are facing forwards. So when it goes into failsafe, that will trigger return to home because that top right-hand corner switch is in return to home, and I've just been and pressed the failsafe button on there. So that's bound in there. So I'm going to turn the transmitter off. The receiver has now gone red. Then we're going to click next. And it says turn your transmitter back on. There we go.
Welcome to Throttle warning. Switch warning. Return to
right, we've reconnected. We go and click on next.
High rates.
Right. Now it says move your aileron stick all the way to the left. Elevator back. There we go. Rudder all the way to the left. Now, this is where we need to put our sticks into our cruising position. So I'm going to choose about half stick on there for cruising position. And again, you'll know your model best. If you're not too sure, just set it as 50% or so. And then click next. And then your climb position, well, it's climbing for a reason. So we need a good like 70% or so. And then we'll click next on that. Right, move your throttle all the way down. And then click next. Right, wizard complete. We'll now click on finish. Right, there we go. We will now see down in the bottom part of the screen is that when I'm moving our sticks around, the ailerons going down there, up and downy, lefty, righty, full knacker and less knacker. And we also now have those two other options available to us. So what I'm going to quickly undo on there, so we have stabilize, 2D no hold, 2D sub mode, and then I'm going to choose in here is 2D, sorry, I want hold, and then I want loiter, and then I want return to home. So now that with that set, what I've got set on there is, right,
Stabilization off.
Right now, stabilization's off. I'm in full control. Both switches away from me. I'm in absolute control. There's no stabilizer settings or anything like that. I click forward once.
Stabilize mode.
I'm in stabilize mode. The model will self-correct itself and it will stabilize it to the best of its abilities. If I now click forwards,
External module.
okay, sorry, I don't have a sound file for that. What we've now got is 2D plus hold, which we've got set in there. And that's a really interesting flight mode because the model will now hold its height and its direction. So you could chuck it in the sky. Once you choose you want to go straight north, you choose it north, hit 2D with hold, and it will hold its height, maintain its airspeed, and then just cruise off until you take control of it again. Very, very relaxing mode so that you're able to maybe do a little bit of pan and tilt, and find your buddy, you know, the kind of things which you usually do. The last one's loiter.
Loiter mode.
So the model will then be in stabilized mode and it will circle in the sky over the point where you hit the loiter button. And the last one,
Return to launch.
return to home. Oh crap, you've done something. Or, as I do, taken off, get the model in the sky, do return to home, just make sure it comes home again. Right, so with that said, it's going to be a bit awkward because I really need that other microphone plugged in. So I'll tell you what, let me jump back to that and do desktop right. Let me get back to your chat as well. So I do apologise for the audio quality there. I did have to unplug the main microphone so that we were able to look at the vector and the software at the same time. And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to quickly flip back over to on here and see if I can change the microphone over to the one which is the one there, I think. Right, so that'll be one of the webcam audio, so that might be a little bit different. Hopefully that's got better. I'm not entirely sure, in fact. Yeah, I've done the wrong one. Apologies for the clicking there. I had a 50-50 chance of getting it wrong, and as we know, that's a 100% chance of getting it wrong as well. So, yeah, that's that one there. Brilliant. Right, so apologies about the audio there. I've had to swap around the microphones. Remember, there's only one bugbear which I can say about the Vector. It has a strange connector to it, and as such, it's can be annoying when you've only got one lead. And I need that lead for the microphone. So let me just quickly recap what we've been and done there. We connected up our model. In fact, what I'll do is I'll swap to the camera on the top. And again, the audio will go a little bit wonky here, and I'll go and unplug that so you can see what's going on here. Move that away. Don't want to damage that one. I like that one a lot. Right. So I kind of have a bit of a knackered Bixler, which is kind of good, well, kind of handy for this video because you can see all the wiring which has come out. Remember earlier on in this episode, Andy was saying about connecting it up. All I've done is put rudder into M1, and it's labelled on the top. Those of you which hopefully you can now see, it says M1, M2, M3, M4. That's the connectors over there on the left-hand side. Our S-bus is going into this connector. So I've taken S-bus out of the receiver. I'm using an L9R, but yours could have been Easy UHF, Dragon Link, for example, or PPM. We saw it in the configuration wizard, and then we plugged that in. Again, you can't put that connector in the wrong way up, like I was trying to do then. It only goes in the one way round. That's one of the really nice things about the Vector. The GPS unit is just on the bus. We connect that anywhere else. Andy, if you're using the airspeed sensor, get the wires up to the GPS unit first on the bus, which is on the front, then daisy chain and wire back to the airspeed sensor, which I assume you'd put on the wing. And then we also had our ESC, so all I've been and done is plug the ESC into the back of the currents module, and then the battery just goes in the front of there. Two other things which you'd want to go and do is using the wires. You would then want to go off and have your VTX out on one wing and the camera on the front. Really straightforward. So remember, the EagleTree Vector does provide power for that, and 12 volts as well, which works really, really good with the kind of FPV gear which we use as well. You kind of get what we're going with there. That said, let's go and plug this in now. Unfortunately, I can't show you the on-screen display which comes with this. If you would like to see how good the on-screen display is and how I've personally got mine configured, after this video is finished, nip down onto the YouTube channel. So underneath this,
alarm.
shut up, woman. Underneath this video, in fact, I'll tell you what, I'm going to pause for a moment. I'm going to get that plug back in again. Let's unmute that. Let's go and get the good audio back. Let's go and change that properties and choose Yeti. There we go. Right, we should be back to the good stuff now. I do apologise about the audio quality. Those of you which have, again, just joined us, the reason for the dip in the audio quality is because we needed that special USB socket to go into the Vector. Anyway, let me just quickly recap what we did. We connected in the cables, as mentioned. It told us in the desktop software. We factory reset the software. Sorry, we updated. Remember, we need the GPS enabled, all plugged into the Vector. We connected it to the computer. We updated the Vector. We can download their software from their website for free. Even if you don't have a Vector, you can still download it, install it, and play with it as well. We then did a factory reset. Then we went in and we chose our airframe, which in our case was traditional fixed wing. Then we set up and went through the configuration wizard. And a part of that was just we went through and the Vector learnt our sticks. Now, chances are that some of those are wrong. Okay, so let's just use the example. In fact, I'm going to power this up while it's on the desk. Excuse me. There we go. Wait for that to kick in. Right, fantastic. So that's now powered up on the desk. Oh, and what are the chances of that? The elevator is going the wrong way. Couldn't have planned that any better. So let me just make the point here. You see the elevator? So I'm pulling back on the stick. And I don't know whether that's coming out or not. The elevator's going the wrong way. And it's freaking out a little bit because I've probably got it in return to home. There we go. The rudder is also going the wrong way. Oh, and the ailerons are going the right way. So we have an elevator and a rudder which is going the wrong way. Absolutely brilliant. Couldn't have planned that any better. Let's unplug that for a moment because it'll sit there and vibrate on the desk. So what you then do, so we're going to take the transmitter and then I'm using the Tyrannus, so I'm going to use this as an example. Right, so there is my mixer. Okay, in fact, I can't see that you can see well enough, so there we go. Right. I hope that makes sense. In fact, yeah, that's going to be the wrong way up for you, so I'm going to have to do this in reverse so it makes sense to you. Just grab a pen. Right, so there's my transmitter. I've got channel 1. There's no mixing in here at all. I hope that's coming out right. So channel 1, I have throttle. Then channel 2, I have ailerons. Channel 3, I have elevator. Channel 4, I have rudder. Now this is where I've got some additional switches. So then I've got channel 5 is SC, so that was the top, that's my mode switch. Then SG is my second mode switch, which is on the other side. Now, how do we go down on here? So it's really easy when it's up the other way around. Right, what else have I got set up in mind? Right, then I also have, I've got two, those should be LS switches. So I have pan and tilt using the switches on either side on channels 7 and 8. S2 is, oh, that one up there.
Camera on, off.
I use that for FPV camera switching as well, a topic which I'll cover at a later date. And then I have SD and SH, which is for a visor, and then a rear camera option. That's not particularly what I use right now, but yeah, have those set up on the transmitter. Now, the point which I'm trying to make here is that you don't, if the elevator's going the wrong way, okay, the thing is that you need to make the transmitter match what the output of the model is. So what you then do is in the Tyrannus, you go across, again, I can't do this upside down, I'm afraid. We'll go quickly back. So which one's the elevator? It's the elevator and the rudder were going the wrong way, weren't they? So that's channels 3 and 4. So we'll then go into the outputs, go into channel 3. There we go. Go across and reverse the channel in the transmitter. There we go. So I reversed both channels 3 and 4. So at the moment, they're going the wrong way. And this is the bit which you then need to do is nip back to plug it back in, the vector back in, and go through the setup wizard again. So as we saw a few moments ago, you just and that's the quickest and fastest way route. You just go back into the desktop software, you click on RC, I'll show you. I'll show you if I actually choose the desktop. There we go. Like so, like so. You go in here, obviously connect it, power it back up with the USB connector connected to your vector, and then click on Run RX Analysis Wizard, and then just go through it back again, and then come back and check on it, and that's it. Okay, in our case, we had the rudder going the wrong way, and we had the elevator going the wrong way. Really, really obvious because you just pull back and think it's wrong. Change it in your transmitter, reverse the channel in the transmitter, then come back to the software and go back through the wizard, and then that's it. You are ready to then get to the flight line. It's straightforward as that. Now, obviously, I'm skipping over a few things, such as if I go back to the main camera, right. Obviously, I'm skipping over a few daft things, like you should then go on and install that in your model, okay? You may be wondering, well, Matt, which way round do I put the vector in the model? Well, it's a bloody great big arrow pointing forwards. So you mount that facing forwards in your model, okay? I use Velcro on the back of my vectors, and in most of the models, I also have a cable tie going over the top as well, just to make sure if I do have a rough landing that the vectors always sat down nicely within the airframe. And that's the vector. Really kind of straightforward. What you would do from here is go on and get it installed in your model, get your camera set up, your FPV set up, and get it all set up. Remember, do that check where you would enable a stabilize. Well, in fact, I'll show you on the desk. If I click on top right, there we go. Got it powered up. Don't have it turned on at the moment.
Welcome to Tyrannus. Throttle warning. Switch warning. Stabilization off.
Wait for it to blow.
High rate off.
Okay, now in a moment, there's no stabilization mode.
Stabilize mode.
But if you watch what happens with the vector, you see that I'm tilting it to the right. So the model's now like, oh, it was dropping the left wing over, and it's going, whoa, 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 I need to come back straight again. Okay. Now, this is the thing, is that if I tilt it backwards, it's actually pulling up on the elevator. So it's working the wrong way around. Remember, we had those two channels the wrong way round. So in theory, when we pull the nose up on the model, is that we would want the elevator to go down. Okay. And of course, with the rudder, the rudder's a little bit more difficult to work out by just jiggling it around. That's why you just use your sticks. Okay. So yeah, just go through and just make sure the model will self-correct itself. So yeah, we're going that. So the model's leaning off to the left, so we need to bring that left wing back up again, and vice versa. So we're going to unplug that there in the background. So there you go. That's the EagleTree Vector. Let me nip across to your questions and comments which have been going along with this, because this has been recorded live. So those of you which have been enjoying us later on in the stream, this was recorded live, and I've done my best to. How long have I kept this? Almost in an hour, and the first 16 minutes we were chatting about the positives and the negatives about a vector. I think that's pretty good. So what was that? Was that 30 minutes all in? So if I wasn't stood here chatting to you, and you weren't here stood chatting to me, you could have got that pretty much installed and configured in your model within 30 minutes or less. The longest part of the install of an EagleTree Vector is that you've got it installed, you've got it configured, and then you go to check it, and then you realise that you've got one of your channels backwards. So you'll go to move the ailerons the right way or the right, and it's going the wrong way. Just those basic tests, and you have to then go back through and do the reconfiguration for it. So that is the longest part of the entire process. Okay. Which you can even do on the flight line. That point which I wanted to make earlier is that if you would like to see the on-screen display in action, okay, underneath this video, obviously once we finish, click on Rag the Nuts Off, go back a couple of videos, you might need to click the videos tab, and then go back a couple of videos for the Ranger 1600 Maiden, and you'll see me talking on the flight line and flying it. We've got the on-screen display working, you'll see it working, you'll see where the arrows point for return to home, you'll see I've got mine set up with the airplane in the middle and the home symbol moving around, which makes really good sense. You'll see all the other piece settings going on the screen as well. You'll see the current usage, you'll see the height, the speed, and so on and so forth. And then also, when we get that model landed, you'll also hear me talk about the incorporation of the trims, and you will see the menu which you get with the Vector. And it's really cool with the Vector because all you do is double click the mode switch, and then that opens up the menu system, and then you can pretty much change every single setting that you would want to as part of the on-screen display. It is just so easy. Like, for example, that when we did the Ranger Maiden, that's why I had to go in there, I had the return to home radius set it, 18 meters or something, so it was just like flying around in a circle, trying to loiter in a tiny little space. So if that was the iNav, you'd be screwed. You'd have to get a bloody laptop out, USB in. Oh, what a pain in the ass. Vector, double click, down to stabilize the settings, return to home, change it up to 100 meters, back, done. It's that easy. That's why I like the Vector. The Vector, yes, it is more expensive. In fact, it's 3 times more expensive to own a Vector outright in the beginning, okay? However, the key point which is missing from this equation is time. It is at least 3 times as easy to install compared to iNav or RG-Plane or something else like that, okay? That's the piece which most people don't account for, is that time costs money, and for the time which it takes for me to come from the desk with a Vector is 1/3 of the less of the time. That's why I like the Vectors a lot. That's why I own 4 of them, okay, for me. And the other one is that the model always comes home, unless there's a tree in the way, and look out for that episode later this week. Alright, so yeah, do look on YouTube, look at other people's videos, go and have a look at if you, like I said, if you want to see it in action, when it's not even properly configured and I have to change the settings on the flight line, excuse me, tickly throat, go and see the Ranger 1600 Maiden video. Chuck in this guy, bloody tiny little radius, click, done. Fly, went on to enjoy the rest of the day. Well, as best as I could with the absolute terrible camera which I put in it. It works really, really good. So let me just pause for a moment. Vince, I'm disappointed that you're not at the beach today. You're in Sainsbury's having breakfast. Good lad. Let's have a quick look. Stifler says, Paddy, if you're flying into a tree, no flight controller is ever going to prevent crashing. Absolutely. There are other factors which you will find out very shortly why that happened, and look out for that episode this week. I will publish it later on this week, and you'll understand that one a little bit more. Let's have a quick look. Brema, I can tell you how to flash a quantum 3x. No idea on a head tracker, never used it. Stifler says, next project is a Vector in a Sonic model binary. Happy days, that would make really, really good sense. See flyers, I've got one in the post right now. Happy days. So a quick look. Yeah. When it comes to purchasing and shipping, we have a company in the UK called RC Log. The only time the Vectors ever go on a sale is Black Friday before Christmas. That's the only time I've ever seen them reduced in price. Or do look out for them online as second-hand ones, because they do come up, and literally they do come up, and Andy actually, I now believe, owns 4 of them, because he saw somebody else comment when he was talking about a Vector in the group saying, I've got 2 here in the drawer. He messaged him in the background in Facebook, and he now owns 4 of them, to my knowledge, and got them for a really good price as well. So keep in the back of your mind, Vectors do hold their money, and the reason why they hold their money is because they're really good. Okay, but bargains can be scored if you do look out for second-hand items on Facebook, for example, or somewhere else elsewhere. So, with that said, I genuinely hope that has been and helped you. This has been an insight into the EagleTree Vector. I am, as you can tell, a really big fan. It works really, really well for me for numerous different reasons. A, because it's proven to work, unless there's a tree in the way. Like I said, you'll find out about that episode this week. In fact, if you're not subscribed, you want to find out what went wrong for me, underneath this video, don't forget to press the big fat red subscribe button and bash that bell icon and choose all so that YouTube lets you know when the next video is out. Because I think we've got another maiden coming out tomorrow night, and then we've got that special video where we make a bit of a screw up coming out this week. So yeah, don't forget, shameless plug to hit subscribe. If you have any questions or comments about what we've been covered here, don't forget you can ask them down in the comments section underneath this video. And for absolute clarity, those vectors, they were all bought out of my own money for my own abuses. I've got 4 of them because they work really, really well. That desktop software, what happens, unlike iNav where you keep having to go back to it, you set it up once, it works, job done. Genuinely job done. The only time you might want to come back to the desktop software is because actually you want to reconfigure the on-screen display, and it's much easier to do that as part of the desktop software, because you can just, as we saw, we can just drag and drop the icons around to your own liking. Okay, so that's the only real reason you'd come back to do that. Or maybe you want to set up waypoints and do a little waypoint mission. You would need the desktop software to do that. Okay, which there's no when it comes to the going off topic slightly. For the waypoints, you don't even need to read the manual. It's really bloody obvious what you want it to do. You choose. I'm not going to jump across the desktop because we've just pushed the hour mark. Go and have a play. Remember, you can download the Vector software for free. Go and have a look at the waypoints. Set up number 1. And then just choose what type it is. It could be home. It could be a standard point. You choose your elevation. Really straightforward. It doesn't even need me to explain it. Go and have a play. Like I said, just type in EagleTree Vector software. You can download it off their website. Once it's installed, press the escape key, and then you can play with their software. You can see all the different things which you can have on the on-screen display. You can have a look at their waypoints. Really, really straightforward. And yeah, just go and have a play. Genuinely like it. But do keep in the back of your mind is that there's only two reasons why you come back to do that after the setup. Waypoints, and maybe to change the on-screen display as well to your own liking as you get more. I have a specific layout which I like a lot, so that's the one which once I've got mine set up, that's it. I just never go back. That's the first time I've seen that software in ages. I genuinely mean in ages, because you don't need to go back for it, because everything else which you need is on your transmitter. You can get into that menu. Let's have a look. Stifler bought for like 100 quid or so. Yeah, absolutely. That's the absolute bargain in there. What the best thing about the Mini Talon is because it's a Mini Talon and it's really cheap, Paddy, to answer your question on there. Which I think Stifler was answering then in the chat as well. Yeah, it's a really good model. If you want to see how good, go back 2 videos on the YouTube channel and it's just click on Mini Talon. That's us messing around with Mini Talons. Really, really good models for absolutely no money at all. So anyway, it's time for me to wrap up. I want to say a massive thank you to you for taking the time to join me here at the workbench for a build Saturday. We kind of built up to our best of our abilities, a Bixler with a Vector in it. You know, but it was a real good practical example for us to use. I genuinely hope that you found this video useful. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up, questions or comments down in the comments section underneath this video. And as always, from myself, Matt, cheerios!